you want gorgeous looks, lots of muscle and evocative names, then we're going to need a wider shot because we're two middle-aged men named Ben, but have we got a treat for you?
I mean, just look at this pair, the Ferrari Amalfi and the Aston Martin Vantage S, two beautiful, brawny V8 sports cars, and both up against something that wants to steal their thunder in this exclusive Car Magazine triple test. And that something is this car, the Porsche 911 Turbo S.
This thing is just absolutely crazy. You've got instant performance, masses and masses of grip, and it is just demolishing this road. Porsche has been evolving the turbo since 1974, and today, when almost every 911 is turbocharged, this flagship model still stands apart with its huge performance, long-distance comfort and relative practicality. In fact, on paper, this new 992.2 Turbo S doesn't seem so different to the 993 of 30 years ago. It's still a 3.6-litre twin-turbo with all-wheel drive and a whopping great wing on the back, and it's still all about the boost. But beneath this familiar bodywork, an awful lot has changed here, even versus the previous model. You'll pay from £199,000, and for that you get a big uplift in performance, more intelligent aero, and suspension that's said to be both more dynamic and more comfortable than ever before. Now, visually, it's very similar to the previous model. You might notice these vertical cooling slats at the front. We first saw them on the 911 GTS. These alloy wheels in a dark grey bronzy colour that Porsche calls Turbonite. And then at the rear, we've got these new titanium exhaust tips. Now these save 6.8 kilos here, but it's what's at the other end of these exhausts that is truly transformative. That's because this is the first 911 Turbo to feature Porsche's T-hybrid technology. You get a new 3.6-litre engine and an E-motor integrated into the 8-speed dual-clutch gearbox. There's also two small electrified turbochargers. All the electric stuff driven by a 400-volt electrical system and a tiny 1.9 kilowatt-hour battery at the front. Weight increases by 85 kilos, but power is up to 701 brake horsepower, a 60 brake horsepower increase. Stop-start kicks in all the time, but there is no pure electric mode. So you couldn't call this engine exactly characterful, but it has got no shortage of performance. It does 0 to 62 in 2.5 seconds, 0 to 124 in 8.4, and it's 14 seconds faster around the Nürburgring. That is absolutely insane. It makes all its power at 6.5 to 7,000 RPM, but it's also giving you all the torque from just 2,300. So there is muscle just absolutely everywhere. I think one of the things I worried about with this T-hybrid system was that the turbo has always been quite binary performance in some ways, in that you got a bit of lag, you got some build, and then you got all the boost. And I was worried that in making the response instant, you would lose some of that character. But the good news is you haven't. So if I squeeze the throttle, it's instantly there. As soon as I tap it, it's instantly on. Instantly gains momentum, but you've still got that sense of something building, something brewing, and then kicking, so you've still got that turbo character that is very, very different to something naturally aspirated, like a GT3. I mean, it is just gobbling up these straights. It's absolutely crazy. There's so much performance here. So if we just bring this to a stop briefly, into first gear and see how this thing feels from a standing start. Manual mode, ready. Oh my God. It's proper organ rearranging stuff. I mean, the last model was really vicious in terms of performance, but there's no question this thing moves the game on. There's another benefit to going hybrid too. Porsche uses the 400-volt system to power standard active anti-roll bars. That means they're faster to react and, says Porsche, it improves ride quality and handling too. Now, active anti-roll bars are usually something we see on SUVs. They're tall and they're heavy, and it helps the suspension manage all that mass and keep it in check. On sports cars, they're less important because you've got a lower centre of gravity. Typically, when Porsche 911s are optioned with them, they often get a bit of a lukewarm response. So let's see how this thing feels. Nice quick steering, nice and pacey, nicely weighted, so it doesn't feel overbearingly heavy, but it does give it some kind of meaningful heft. The ride is really good on this car. The body's staying nice and flat. This is a really tricky road, really kind of warped Italian tarmac, very tricky primary sort of undulations, and it's just floating over the top of it. That gives you a lot of confidence. We've also got 10mm wider rear tyres here, so 325 at the back, and larger carbon ceramic brakes. So, you know, this thing could feel like a one-dimensional quarter-mile king, but there is far more to it than that. Well, let's just string together some bends. So that deep, kind of really evocative flat six exhaust, a bit muted by the turbos, but really cool. Just absolutely time warps between these bends. So a bit of rotation there, but it wants to pull itself straight quickly, so gives it that frenetic nature. And you sort of need to have the confidence to go in that bit earlier. Brakes are exceptional in this car, really good feel, lots of confidence. I find sometimes on a tighter road like this, the way it does pull at the front is maybe not entirely helpful at all times. It takes some of the flow out of it, but I imagine this is also a little bit of an unfair road for this car. It's not its natural habitat, but it's certainly managing it pretty well. Gear shifts, PDK, they're pretty seamless. They like a bit of bite actually. They're maybe not dramatic enough. It is really quite something. So the Turbo S is thrilling to drive, and then when you wind back the pace, it settles back with you. It rides nicely, it's easy to jump in and out of, and you've got optional +2 seats in the back. The interior might be pretty sober, but it's beautifully laid out, nicely built. The leather is exceptional, and I love how perfectly the small diameter steering wheel fits in your hands. I think for me, key to enjoying it on a road like this is having the confidence that you can get into the throttle earlier and leave your braking later in the corner to bring that natural rotation of a rear engine car. Once you put the weight over the nose, once you start to flow it together, it becomes more cohesive. I think if you're a little bit tentative with it, it can feel a bit too frenetic, a bit like it's boosting and then it's gripping, and you almost have to be one step ahead of it to make the most of it. But you know, as a complete package, this car is very, very special. If you want ultimate dynamics, I'd still take a GT3. But for a car that does everything, the 911 Turbo S really does take some beating.
If anybody knows how to make a great sports car, it's Ferrari, and this is the Ferrari Amalfi. At £202,000, it's a little bit more expensive than the 911 Turbo S, but where the 911 Turbo S is absolutely the flagship of Porsche's evergreen sports car, the 911, this is actually the entry-level Ferrari. And it goes about being a bewilderingly quick but approachable, friendly and usable sports car in a completely different way to the Porsche. It channels those glorious Ferraris of the 1950s and 1960s to create a more romantic car. One that's not so much about charging about the place at absolute light speed, but about enjoying the drive. It's a car for the journey rather than the destination. In simple terms, of course, the Amalfi is a facelift of the Roma. So up front, we've still got that 3.9 litre twin-turbo V8 with a transaxle gearbox on the rear axle and that perfect 50-50 weight distribution. But there's more power, there's new tech on the chassis side promising a sharper drive, and crucially we've got a heavily revised interior with a new infotainment system that promises to not have you pulling your hair out in frustration as you try to use it. And of course, in case you hadn't noticed, the Amalfi is also absolutely gorgeous. The Amalfi's platform carries over, but every body panel is new for a cleaner, sleeker look and a modern take on the retro GT vibe. The most obvious change is the front grille. The egg crate style perforations are gone, replaced by a cleaner shark nose and aggressive lower bib. There's also a more technical look to the headlights and the taillights, a reprofiled bonnet bulge and more fulsome hips that flow into those redesigned door panels. It really is a thing of beauty. I'll tell you what else is beautiful as well, and that's a subscription to Car Magazine. Every month we bring you in-depth reviews, hot new group tests and epic adventure drives, cutting through the noise to bring you the inside line. By subscribing, you'll save money on shop prices, never miss an issue, and enjoy delivery right to your door, which is free if you're in the UK. Simply visit greatmagazines.co.uk/car to check out our latest offers. Two of the weakest aspects of the Roma were the interior and the infotainment, so funnily enough, in creating the Amalfi, Ferrari's given those a big upgrade. Some things haven't changed, so you've still got this wraparound feel for driver and passenger, and in the back we've still got those 2+2 rear seats. But some things have changed, and the architecture feels different, feels like an improvement. Instead of the portrait-orientated touchscreen in the middle, we've got this new landscape screen, and this really nice spar across the middle of the car, milled from a single piece of aluminium. And it does feel like everything has just had a bit of a lift. Not least, of course, the steering wheel. So the old capacitive controls are gone, and we've got a return to one of the best start buttons and one of the best engines in the business. Okay, that 3.9 litre twin-turbo V8. It's had a little bit of a power hike from Roma to Amalfi, but in this company against the Vantage S and the 911 Turbo S, it's actually the weakest of the three on horsepower figures. Torque, though, is the same as the Vantage, and geez, on these twisty Italian hill roads, you could never find this thing wanting for power. It has got performance absolutely everywhere. It doesn't quite have that rambunctious, like full V8 flavour that the Aston engine has. It's a little bit more sophisticated, a bit more civilized maybe, but it absolutely flies. And Ferrari's always been very good at hanging on to that high RPM rush ever since it switched to turbocharging on its V8s. But don't let you think that means there's no torque, because there's still plenty of that as well. It's not overwhelming, it won't destabilize the car in wet weather or on rough roads. It's a nice amount of torque, but it's still there, and it will still haul you out of steep uphill hairpins and onto the next one before you can say Enzo. Yeah, maybe the least powerful of these three cars and the least powerful car in Ferrari's range, but by no means wanting. Absolutely ballistic. A proper Ferrari V8 then, even down to the red crinkled cam covers. Unlike the 911, there are no hybrid upgrades here, but you do get an extra 20 horsepower, camshafts that are 1.3 kilos lighter, faster spinning turbos and a new Bosch engine management system. Overall, the Amalfi produces 631 horsepower, accelerates 0 to 62 in just 3.3 seconds, and onto 124 in just 9. So there's absolutely no shortage of performance, but Ferrari is keen to position the Amalfi as approachable for buyers new to the brand. The beauty of this car, the Amalfi, and the Roma before it, was the sort of fluidity with which it goes down a testing piece of road. It's a car with real flow to it. When Ferrari created the Roma from the Portofino, made a coupe version effectively of the Portofino. It actually ran softer damping and springs on the car than the Portofino. There was less weight up high to control, of course, but also they wanted to hang on to that accessible, freewheeling character, and the Roma's always been such a joy in that way. It's not a car that skitters down the road. It always stays within its composure and just lets you enjoy this remarkable chassis. You clock this car, you clock the Amalfi and its endless bonnet, and you think it's going to be so ponderous to change direction. But of course that V8 is mid, it just happens to be in front of you rather than behind. And turn in is just fabulous. It's so instant. And you can feel the front suspension supporting the nose instantly. There's no sort of waiting for it to settle. It's got you as soon as you turn the quick, if slightly synthetic steering. And remarkably, despite that eagerness to change direction, the rear's always with you as well. It's kind of hooked up. We'll follow in line if that's what you want to do, but equally if you want to wind things off a bit and let fly, then you can make shapes with it too. So yeah, somehow it covers all the bases. There's nothing intimidating about it. You could take it to the shops, you could drive it across the Alps, down to the French Riviera without a second thought. But you can also come to roads like this and have an absolute blast. To help make the Amalfi more dynamic, Ferrari has added brake-by-wire ABS Evo, 6D chassis sensors to monitor and react to pitch, yaw and roll, and updated side slip control 6.1 to let you exploit the Amalfi's handling while still having a safety net. And they're all systems we found highly effective and highly addictive in the 296 GTB. So how has Ferrari achieved that bandwidth? Well, where do you begin? It's rooted right through the package, but it all comes to a head here with the famous Manettino switch. So we're in comfort now with automatic damping. The car's put itself in its more laid back comfort mode damping settings. And yeah, what could be finer? You can just sit back, enjoy the view down that incredible bonnet, and drive in complete comfort with absolutely nothing to worry about. The 8-speed gearbox is, maybe it's not quite Turbo S PDK quick, but it shifts cogs just effortlessly and so smoothly, whether you're cruising about or absolutely flying. And then you've got wet mode to make it even more laid back and chill. Comfort, the sort of go-to setting. Sport brings a little bit more noise. And then you've got race, of course, because this is a Ferrari, so into race, manual shifting, and suddenly that dead cruisy, dead laid back V8 wakes up and starts absolutely flinging you across the hillsides. It is like 2, maybe even 3 cars in one. It is that totally laid back, easy to live with GT. I mean, the difference in engine volume is unbelievable, isn't it? Now that we're in race. And then, yeah, flick a switch. And everything is ramped up to give you that, well, the reason you bought the car, the reason you wanted something with that prancing horse badge on the front. And you will not be disappointed. So the Amalfi is a very different proposition to the 911 Turbo S. But what if you want something that promises to offer the best of both worlds? The front engine balance of the Amalfi with the extra aggression of the 911.
Well, this could be just the ticket. It's the new Aston Martin Vantage S. It's a car that sharpens up the already excellent new Vantage, and with which Aston hopes to tempt buyers out of their default 911s. But they're also taking aim at the Amalfi in particular when they describe it as the new benchmark front-engined ultra-luxury sports car. It costs from £169,000, so that's the cheapest car on this test, and just £4,000 more than the standard Vantage. And I tell you what, it feels pretty good to me. The S is not a reinvention of Aston's most compact sports car. Rather, it sweats the detail in search of more feel, more driver engagement, and better composure. It also dials up the exterior and interior to match. Now, this layout was already a huge leap on over the previous generation, both in terms of logic and sense of occasion. Now, this car as standard comes with leather and Alcantara. You've got satin twill carbon fibre inlays, embroidered S logos, embroidered Aston Martin wings, and also this red knurled drive mode controller. This car is actually optioned in the semi-aniline leather interior, and you can also option a semi-aniline leather with Alcantara option. Outside, it's all pretty subtle with a few detail changes basically. So we've got these centrally mounted bonnet blades here to extract more hot air from the V8, and they are pretty hot actually after our drive. These are the standard wheels for the car, so 5-spoke forged alloy wheels, 21 inches, and these red badges, apparently handmade with red glass enamel. And if we go to the rear of the car, this little extra lip of a spoiler, this is said to add another 44 kilos of downforce to the rear, but the aerodynamic balance actually shifts further forwards because of extra work that's been done on the underbody and the front air dam. But ever since Aston first brought us the S badge with the DB3S in 1953, it's always been about adding performance. So naturally the Vantage S introduces a number of changes, including to the 4-litre twin-turbo V8. You might be a little underwhelmed by the 14 brake horsepower power rise you get with this car, but it's important to remember that this car made a huge leap when it came out over the previous generation, and 670 brake for this car is an awful lot, especially when there's 590 pound-foot of torque going to the rear wheels alone. That's as much as the 911 turbo. It's definitely the most characterful engine here. It's got a kind of hot rod quality to it, so it's quite rowdy, but it's also got a sophistication as well. And I think when you're just coaxing it along, it's got a really kind of rich feel, and then as you rev it out, it gets a lot more attitude. Response is really good. It can't match the 911. It takes a tiny little while to build, but really that's when you're focusing on it and thinking about when that boost is actually arriving. So if we're in third, pretty slow now, third gear, 1500, it's taking a while, and then so from 2.5, so obviously being at 1500, that's pretty unusual in normal driving. So the boost starts to come in at 2.5. The red line is at 7,000 RPM, so it's relatively narrow, but you feel like you've got performance everywhere. You feel like there's loads of torque. It's really generous. As for acceleration, well, the Turbo S is in another time zone. And while the Vantage S is only a tenth slower than the Amalfi from 0 to 62 by 124 miles an hour, that margin has grown to about a second, with the Vantage S taking 10.1 seconds to get there. But I'll tell you what, I really couldn't care less, because there is more than enough performance here. I love the mid-range torque, how it gives the rear a decent workout, although the rear's doing well to deal with it actually. When you dig into it, it's been softened off a little bit. But that exhaust note is just so characterful, just so much more appealing, I think, than the Amalfis. Now, the gearbox isn't a dual clutch, unlike the Porsche or the Ferrari. I think the shifts are good though. If we go up to fourth there, they're not as crisp, but I think they probably suit the nature of this car, and they're certainly not frustrating. I'm getting the downshifts when I want them. Upshifts are coming quick enough. Sometimes when you think about it, you maybe notice, but this powertrain, I think it's got a sophistication to it. And I think the gear shifts, with not being too aggressive, actually suits that quite well. But it's the chassis changes that are actually the bigger difference here. Aston has made both calibration and hardware changes to the Vantage's Bilstein BTX dampers. The rear subframe is now mounted directly to the body, and there are revised camber, toe, and caster settings. The idea is to sharpen up turn-in response and improve front-end grip. But it's not all about firming everything up. The rear helper springs are actually softened, and there's a 10% reduction in stiffness for the transmission mount. The steering is really nice on centre. They made changes to camber and caster as well as toe, but I think the caster, we've got some nice kind of meat to the centre, so it wants to self-centre, but it's also got quite a pronounced on-centre feel, so it's responsive immediately off it. and it weights up really nicely. So the force you've got, the torque you've got as you twist it, has got a really kind of meaningful sort of heft. It's not overly heavy, but it just feels kind of meaningful. It weights up and does give you a level of connection to this car. It could still be more feelsome, but it's definitely got that extra weight, and I think that helps. It feels heavier, it feels wider than the Amalfi, but it's still really agile. The way it's flowing through these bends, it's stringing them together really nicely. As you turn in, the weight managed really quickly at the front and supported really nicely at the back as well. You could argue that the Vantage isn't well enough differentiated from the standard model. There's very little extra power, weight remains identical, and the chassis changes are hardly revolutionary. But it only costs £4,000 more than the standard car, and it all definitely adds up on the road. I really like this car. I like the handling, I like the character, the attitude of it. It hangs together really nicely. But while the Aston might be great, so are its two rivals, and we need to make a decision and rank all three cars. Starting with the car that kicked off this test, the 911 Turbo S. So you drove the Porsche all the way here from Stuttgart, didn't you? So tell us about that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Flew to Stuttgart a couple of days ago, then came down through the mountains and through northern Italy in the Turbo S, and it was absolutely majestic. So all kinds of roads, and on those mythical de-restricted stretches of Autobahn, it was a monster. I mean, in that kind of environment, you want three things, don't you? You want instant ballistic performance, you want awesome brakes if anybody does pull out, and you want complete stability. And funnily enough, yeah, the Turbo S absolutely monstered that bit. But we've been down here now a couple of days, haven't we, on really twisty hill roads in northern Italy, and it's refused to fall out of the fight, hasn't it? It's still great fun when you get to the twisty stuff.
That's right, yeah, it's not just an Autobahn cruiser. It's been really interesting to drive it on these roads. It's got those active anti-roll bars. The cornering of this car is amazing. It's got that kind of Porsche precision, the response of the engine. It's a really feisty thing as well, so it's not just about just being a GT and doing a straight line thing. It's really entertaining. I think the issue I have with it is that the Carrera GTS has got T-Hybrid as well, and made a case for itself against the other Carreras, moved into this territory, and they share that technology. And I just wonder how often I'm going to be doing 200 miles an hour on an Autobahn, or really tapping into the full potential. And it's an amazing potential of this car on these kind of roads, and I think I would probably save the cash and stick with the GTS.
Yeah, in a way we kind of got a sliding scale here, haven't we, with these three cars, from absolutely ballistic, clinical capability in the form of the Turbo S, and then we've got massive character in the form of the Vantage S, and maybe the Amalfi is sort of the sweet spot in between. But yeah, where are your head and your heart at with the two V8s?
Yeah, I think they're very similar concepts, aren't they, in terms of two V8s, rear-wheel drive. The Amalfi they're clearly trying to win new customers with that, and that's what they've actually stated, Ferrari. So when I first got into it, that's what really struck me, that it was so easy to live with. The ride, the steering, very unintimidating car. Maybe not enough attitude at first. I wondered if it wouldn't have the attitude. Whereas the Aston, you get into that, and it's absolutely bustling with muscle and V8, and it's kind of really extrovert. It feels an event. There's lots of theatre, and it also feels a bit scary as well. You know, we've been going back and forth on this and really dithering over it. And I think the Ferrari has started to come back into contention, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we're starting to align, aren't we? I think ultimately, objectively, this is probably the better car by a nose, isn't it? I think for me, the weight on paper isn't massive, the weight difference, but on the road it really feels it. I think that's something to do with that sort of extra level of poise and precision that the Ferrari has over the Aston Martin. It just rides these lumpy roads really well, and it changes direction so effortlessly. I mean, they've always said it's mid-front engine, isn't it? But it changes direction like a mid-engine car. That steering is quick, but it never feels nervous. I think the Aston, yeah, I adore it for all sorts of things. It's got more traction than the Ferrari. It's got, I think, a nicer interior, even though the Amalfi is a big step up over Roma on the infotainment and the interior front. And I just love the way this thing looks and sounds. But yeah, I think unfortunately when you get to the end of the day and tot up the points, it's the Amalfi by a nose, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. I'd like it to have a bit more attitude in race mode. It could step up, more noise. That's maybe lacking a little bit. But I think in terms of all-round finesse, by a nose, I think this is our winner, the Ferrari Amalfi. Well, that's the car we prefer. But which would you choose? The Amalfi, the 911 Turbo S, or the Vantage? Let us know in the comments.
And don't forget to subscribe to Car to see more world-exclusive videos like this.